Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
You go into your shower feeling, but as soon as you reach for the Irish Spring, your day immediately gets better. That crisp, fresh, unmistakable Irish Spring scent zings your brain and awakens your senses. So when you finally emerge from the shower, 37 minutes later, because you pay the water bill so you can stay in there as long as you want, you're ready to take on the day and smell great doing it. Irish Spring Body Wash and Bar Soap. Fresh, green, Irish. Shop now at Walmart.
It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant pride.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Happy Victory Monday, everybody, and welcome to Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. John Schmeelk, along with the voice of the Giants, Bob Papa. What's up, Bobby?
Hi, John. How are you?
Doing great. We're taking your calls, 201-939-4513. Bob, really nice victory for the Giants, 21-15 over the Browns, and you had a chance to talk to Brian Dable earlier today for the TV show this week, and one of the questions I thought you asked him was very poignant, that this was a true team win where everybody chipped in on both sides of the ball to bring this victory home.
Yeah, I mean, you look at all the different players that were involved in the sacks. It was like a feeding frenzy, and I thought, obviously Eric Gray fumbles the opening kickoff, and then in one play, Cleveland's in the end zone, and you're like, oh, my God, here we go again.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, you got to dig out of this thing. And, look, they didn't do anything offensively on their first possession, but, the defense never let Cleveland get on the Giants' side of the field again.
And then we had another scare, by the way, on the Giants' second possession on the interception that got called back, too.
Right. So Daniel Jones gets hit in the head, and then, they go on this nice drive, and, they stabilize the game, 13 plays, 81 yards. Then they had a 93-yard drive, and they were making clutch plays throughout the course of these drives, and you kind of saw what this team potentially could be moving forward because Malik Nabers opens up a lot of things. Wan'Dale Robinson, I think, we're going to see, they had a play in the second half to Robinson where he had creased him. Jones put it a little bit too far in front of him. If he hits him on the run, he's gone. You had the go route to Nabers. You had the Singletary fumble. So they really kind of short-circuited themselves in the second half. But at the end of the day, they only allowed 15 points, and they won the football game. And, on my Sirius NFL radio show, we, at the beginning of the year, a lot of people really felt like Cleveland was a team that could definitely win the AFC North. And, everybody's talking about, hey, every team in that division can have a winning record. And then almost like a song, everybody repeat after me the verse. Whether you watch NFL Network, you watch ESPN, whether you listen to Sirius XM NFL radio, since the start of 2013, the Cleveland Browns defense at home is, the Giants are in deep trouble. They only give up 15.8 points per game. They only give up 130 yards passing per game. They only give up 220 yards of total offense a game. Giants had all that at the half. Daniel Jones had 176 yards at the half. The Giant offense moved the ball. So I think if you're a Giants fan, you have to take this as a big positive because this was an opponent that you were going against that everybody said you couldn't beat. Everybody said you were not going to be able to move the ball at all on offense against that defense. And you pretty much moved it at will. Even in the second half when you got shut out, you were the reasons why you didn't score more points, not them.
Yeah, a couple of things jumped out to me offensively, Bob. You mentioned all those stats. I went back. Since the start of the 2022 season, no one has allowed fewer pass yards per game at home than the Browns. And it's not even particularly close. The Giants and Daniel Jones had the fifth best quarterback rating of any player/team that has gone against the Browns since the start of last year. Fifth best. Joe Burrow's one of the guys that was in there. I think Lamar Jackson was another. But this was a legitimately good defense. He gets through the first half, completes 17 of 19 passes, just 2 incomplete passes in that first half. And they scored 3 touchdowns. Bob, I don't remember.
And listen, the 2 incomplete passes were missed throws.
Correct.
I mean, Nabers doesn't get his second touchdown if Jones hits the tight end Johnson, who was wide open, great design play. And then there was another one that was a missed throw in there. So yeah, he was basically perfect.
And I think you've said this a couple times already. They really, I think, schemed this up well against Jim Schwartz's defense. You got to tip your cap to Brian Daboll in this game. I was talking to my buddy who covers the Browns after the game, and he said, look, the Giants ran every play that we've ever seen teams run against the Browns defense that works against that wide 9 formation, and the Giants just peppered them with it. Outside runs, screens, timing up the blitzes, getting guys in one-on-one situations. Brian Daboll outcoached Jim Schwartz, who's a very good defensive coordinator in this game.
Yeah, I don't think there's another way to put it. That's the fact. And this was a game, we can talk about how in the Minnesota game, it felt like the Giants were completely out-schemed, right? They didn't have an answer for anything. They didn't have an answer for whatever Flores was doing defensively and whatever adjustments were made. They didn't have an answer. And they didn't have an answer for Minnesota's running game. And yesterday in Cleveland, against a team that is perceived to be better, Cleveland didn't have an answer. Cleveland really didn't have an answer. And listen, a lot of their rushing yards came on a Watson scramble, and then when they were in an obvious passing situation, they started running some draws, and they got a couple of, but they really didn't run the ball at all yesterday. So the Giant defense, which couldn't stop the run the week before. Now, they didn't have Nick Chubb. They don't have Nick Chubb. And once Nick Chubb is back, he's going to make them appreciably better. But, they did a very good job of playing good team defense yesterday. And they played complementary football for the most part. And, sometimes, again, we talk about it, but a punt is a good thing. And there were times, they got in these 3rd and longs, they got behind the chains and all that other stuff. I think the one thing that, if you're a fan, you can nitpick a little bit would be you had a couple chances to really close the game out before the Singletary knee.
Yep.
You had the ball at the plus 40, and then you kind of go backwards and then forward a little bit, and then you miss a 48-yard field goal. But I think that's all part of the learning process with this team, and with the quarterback coming back from an injury and a new offensive line, a lot of significant new pieces at running back and wide receiver, and tight end. So I think I think you have to be very positive about the game yesterday, and now, like a fan should be, let's see you do it again.
One other thing about the offense that I thought was fun, then I got a couple things on the defense for you before we get to your calls. When's the last time, Bob, you saw the Giants commit not 1, but 2 holding penalties on an offensive drive? One that put them in a 2nd and 16, another one that put them in a 1st and 17. And they still score a touchdown on that drive. For the last, 5 years, you feel like if there's an offensive holding penalty on a drive, it's going to be a punt every time. They did it twice on that first drive of the game in the first quarter, overcame both those penalties, and still managed to drive the length of the field for a touchdown. And I think that's the Malik Nabers effect in a lot of ways, right? Where it just gives you an explosive part of this offense that opens things up for everybody else.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. Malik Nabers is a difference maker. I mean, listen, for Giant fans, that obviously you're all very loyal. That's why you're watching Big Blue Kickoff live. It's the Odell Beckham Jr. effect. Odell Beckham Jr. just made everything better because he was just that much better at what he does. And I've been saying this for years. The Giants have been going into games, and I used the analogy last year. Other than the Arizona game and other than the New England game, the Giants never went into a game where the other team would agree to trade one of their top 2 receivers for the Giants receivers. And now you go into games, and there's teams that would love to have Malik Nabers.
Correct.
So it's a huge, in today's NFL, it's a huge factor. And, ball placement, all this other stuff. Could there have been some throws that Jones hit? Sure. But that's why you have these guys.
He fixes problems.
I mean, just think about Jamar Chase. Just think about Justin Jefferson. Just think about CeeDee Lamb. Just think about, let's just go through all the top receivers in the National Football League. You think about Mike Evans in Tampa and what he does, what Keenan Allen does.
A.J. Brown for the Eagles.
Yes, they take mediocre throws and they make them into big plays. And when you have receivers of not that caliber, they take a mediocre throw and it becomes a drop, or it becomes a ball that you had in your hands, but it gets knocked away by the defender at the last second. These top guys make everything better. And that's usually a direct result of having effective offenses or not having effective offenses.
And it's funny, PFF put out their initial pressure ratings in this game. And this, to me, Bob, at least pass protection-wise, probably was the worst performance the Giants' offensive line has had this year. You're facing Myles Garrett, not a surprise. The man's a monster.
It's the best. It's the best front they've gone against. Washington has no front. And Minnesota obviously has a good collective team defense with Scott. But, yeah, I mean, that, and now this week, they got Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence.
Yeah.
They got to deal with two people this week, just like they had to deal with two people last week. You're going to give up pressures.
But the fact that Jones was able to navigate all those pressures, and again, these are preliminary numbers, they according to PFF, they had the Giants of allowing the highest pressure rate in the league this week. For Jones to only be sacked twice, Bob, I thought his pocket presence, he got rid of the ball quickly on some of those cornerback blindside blitzes when guys were unblocked. He got the ball out quickly. He had that one ridiculous play in the first half when he avoided 2 or 3 rushers, snuck through, got it to Wan'Dale Robinson that set up the 4th and 1 on the end around to Nabers. I thought his awareness and pocket awareness was great.
How about the touchdown pass to Nabers, the one where he got blasted?
He got blasted by Garrett on that play, right?
Yeah, he got blasted, but he got it in there. So I think his confidence level is going to obviously increase because he's getting better protection. And you also know that you don't have to be absolutely perfect because number one is like an eraser. He cleans things up.
Speaking of cleaning things up, the way I put this on the post-game show, Bob, yesterday while you guys were getting on the plane, getting ready to get home from Cleveland, how many times the last couple years have we gone into a Giants or walked out of a Giants game and said, oh, well, you know, the Giants, they got behind a couple scores. They have a banged-up offensive line. The other team is really good pass rushers, and, you know, you just didn't have much of a chance. The Giants quarterback got lit up. He was on the ground all the time. This was the Giants being on the other end of that equation. They took the 2-score lead against Cleveland. Cleveland had the banged-up offensive line, and the Giants had the elite pass rushers. That's how you get 8 sacks in a game. It was bizarre world from what we've seen the last couple of years.
Oh, and the booing of the Browns going off the field at halftime, and the people screaming at Deshaun Watson and all the things that were being yelled at.
Jameis chants.
Oh, my God, Jameis Winston chants during the game. And I'm like, yeah, I bet you Deshaun Watson and Daniel Jones could have a heck of a heart-to-heart conversation.
It was exactly what the Giants have dealt with the last couple of years.
Yeah, it looked like all of last season, and it looked like week 1 this year. I mean, $245 million guaranteed, 45 per.
And by the way, they keep backing that money up, too. It's not like they've paid a lot of that off. They've pushed that back and renegotiated that deal every year he's been there, too.
Yeah, it's that one. Trevor Lawrence making $55 million. That might be one they choke on. And if with Tua's concussion history and he just signed this deal, you know, that's different, though, because that's injury. That's head injury. That's out of your control a little bit.
And you could always insure yourself against some of that, too, with the injury stuff, too. That can protect teams a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that was not a $45 million a year performance yesterday.
I mean, but this was the coming out party for Brian Burns, right? He had the strip sack. He was in the backfield all game. Dexter Lawrence was Dexter Lawrence. Ojulari chipped in. Thibodeau chipped in. Just everyone up front was winning. You felt like going into the game, they're like, all right, DeJuan Jones has played pretty well this year, but he's a 380-pound offensive tackle. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to put our really fast rushers on that side, and we're just going to speed rush them to death. And we're going to make that 380-pound mountain move and do those kick slides out as wide as he can. And you know what? We think we're going to win more often than not. And that's pretty much what happened.
Yeah, and defensive stats in the NFL are weird because some teams so here's what happens. Some teams go off the game book. So the stats are kept in the press box by the statistician crew, and they have the binoculars, and a guy got a tackle, he got part of that tackle, he got an assist. So there's a subjectiveness to it. Other teams will have a coach's tape review and then release the stats in their press notes, which there's a lot more tackles.
That's how certain guys wind up with like 190 tackles in a season.
Yeah, I mean, well,
Correct.
I think, what was it? Zach Thomas with the Dolphins. I think every year I think he averaged like 230 tackles a year, and I think it was, and playing around the same time. And I can't remember what year it was, but I think Jesse Armstead became the first Giants player to go over 100 tackles. And I'm sitting there saying to myself, how could someone get 150 more tackles than another guy that both play linebacker and didn't miss a game with injury? Well, it was I didn't understand it. And it was explained to me the Giants, like a lot of teams, will use the press box defensive stats, whereas other teams will, after the coaches review the tape, they'll use those stats. I think the Giants after that for a while used the coaches' tape for the stats, but now they've gone back to the press box notes over the last 7 or 8 years. But like, I'll just give you an example. Azeez Ojulari had himself a really good day yesterday. Well, if you look at the official press box stats, he was credited with 2 assists, no solos. He had the sack, and he had 2 quarterback hits. Well, I felt like Ojulari impacted the game a lot more. Thibodeau was credited with 3 tackles, a half a sack, 2 quarterback hits. Certainly felt like he had a bigger game than that. Burns was only credited with 3 tackles. Like,
He was all over the place.
yeah. I mean, so the press box stats are, I guarantee you when the coaches do their review and they put their stats together, I guarantee you there's going to be a lot more. Yeah, I mean, the Giants were credited with 63 tackles. Cleveland was credited with 69.
And then the last thing I'll say about the defense, we gave Brian Dable his props on offense. Let's give Shane Bowen his props on defense, Bob. I went back and I looked at some of the metrics. The Giants blitzed and played more man-to-man in this game than they did either in the first 2 games put together. So they really switched up the game plan. We had the stats heading in. Deshaun Watson against the blitz heading into this game, I think had a 24.4 quarterback rating against the blitz. Trust me, these teams' analytics staffs know all of that stuff. They must have saw that and said, look, we're going to bring the heat against this guy. They know Deshaun Watson likes to hold the football and not get the ball out quick, and that's how that turns into 8 sacks right there. So Bowen really made a nice adjustment to his game plan to really disrupt. And Deshaun Watson said after the game that all the tendencies they showed on tape heading in, it was the opposite. They blitzed on first downs. They pressured more. They played more man-to-man. They switched their down and distance coverage tendencies. And he said it really took them a while to figure out what they were doing.
Yeah, they fell behind 21-7, and the Giants softened up a little bit, and then they kind of figured it out.
Yeah, figured it out. But then, of course, the Browns had 3 chances, down 21-15 to score. They went 0 for 3. And they didn't come particularly close either, for that matter.
Yeah, well, that's the coaching point takeaway out of this is, you know, you love to coach hard and you like to teach hard, and it's great to do it when you come off a win, because there was certainly plenty of things left on that coach's tape that will enable the coaches to make sure that the players aren't feeling full of themselves, because that game should have been put to bed midway through the third quarter. That game should have been unreachable, and through the Giants' own mistakes, that's why the game was still reachable. And let's see what they do this week. I mean, look, they've lost 13 of the last 14 to the Cowboys. Prescott's won 12 straight starts. In 21, when the Giants beat him, Andy Dalton was the quarterback. That's their only win in this 14-game stretch. They beat Dak twice his rookie season, and they haven't beaten him since. Like, it's time you got to start changing these narratives. It just can't be the same old. And they're going to have to play. They're going to have to play as well as they played yesterday, and even better in certain areas, because the Cowboys, despite the fact that they lost yesterday, they're going to pose some threats.
They can still score the ball. You know, their run defense is a sieve right now. They can't stop
And
anything.
their pass defense ain't that great either because
It's
their run defense is affecting their pass defense because now teams get to throw when they want to throw, not
Correct.
because they have to throw.
Off a play action and 3rd and short. It's funny. We could see us on the postgame. I gave him that stat about Dak Prescott. He goes, "Oh, man, I was playing in that game when we beat him last." I'm like, yeah, I don't want to call you old, JC, but it was a long time ago.
Yeah, 2016.
The best part of football season? Checking out the post-game stats. Which wideouts scored more than 2 touchdowns? Which QBs threw for less than 350 yards? Think you can pick who will do what before kickoff? Then play Pick 6 from DraftKings, an official daily fantasy partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app, select between 2 and 6 players, and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat. It's that simple. And for all first-time Pick 6 players, check this out. New customers play $5 on your first pick set, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code DK1. That's code DK1 for new customers to play $5 on your first pick set, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Non-withdrawable. Pick 6 credits. Expire in 6 months. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
So there you have it. 201-939-4513. Giants Huddle Podcast, folks. We have our rapid reaction with Madeline and Toomer up there right now. Go find it on the Giants mobile app, giants.com/podcast, or just search for Giants Huddle or Giants Podcast Network on your favorite podcast platform. You can find the most recent episode. We'll have my episode with Brian Baldinger coming your way tomorrow, and we'll have a couple Baldy breakdowns hitting Giants YouTube, Giants social media coming up as well. He breaks down Daniel Jones, Malik Nabers, little Devin Singletary, and then he has a nice long, like 5-minute video on the defense. So Baldy gets into it with the Giants here coming off their win against the Cleveland Browns.
Before you start taking the calls here.
Yeah, what do you got?
You know what's going to be cool? They're going to hand out those light bands. I guess they're going to have them on everybody's seat on Thursday night that kind of like light up, you know. It's not the drone show, but it's like a really cool thing to create like a really neat atmosphere for the introductions.
Like during the anthem, it'll go red, white, and blue, right?
Yeah,
Things like
all that stuff.
Yeah.
So make sure when you get there, you check out your seat because they're going to be handing out the light bands, which will be fun.
And Pearson, we got some new names here. I'm excited about this. This should be good. Let's start with Rich in Virginia, who'll lead us off. Rich, what's going on?
Oh, actually, John, I'm in Florida. Thanks for taking my call. Thanks, Bob. Welcome to BBKL. You'll find it's a very, shall we say, unique audience. But thanks for those 2 great calls and those 2 championship games. It's instilled in our hearts forever. Lawrence Tynes has kicked the Giants back to the Super Bowl. That was tremendous.
Where are you in Florida, Rich?
Well, we live in Florida half the year, and we live in Williamsburg, Virginia, the other half. Right now I'm in the Patrick Space Force gym talking to you.
Okay.
I'm a retired Air Force, but I wish Paul was there because we've talked about this for years. So we have this national conference call, 2 good friends of mine, and John, I sent you that email so you can see what we look like. So we have a conference call during all the games, mute the sound, coordinate this, even when I was in Germany. So believe it or not, I thought we were dreaming. The Giants actually, I got to laugh, had a successful screen to motor down the left sideline. Wait a second. No penalties, no fumbling and bubbling. And then again.
They had 2 good screens in the first half, Rich. 2 good screens in the first half.
That's right. So then we see a screen to Theo Johnson down the right side. And being diehard Giant fans, we go back to the early 60s. What? No penalties? No fumbling and bumbling? Like, hallelujah. So finally, we have what I think appears to be an athletic offensive line that can get out there and actually block the defenders on a screen pass. Thank you, Jesus. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Rich. Appreciate the call.
When you have better players, you can execute better things. When the Giants had Ahmad Bradshaw, they were able to run some screens. When they had Tiki Barber, they ran some screens because they had a good offensive line. Tony Galbraith in the 80s ran screens. Dave Meggett ran screens. You know why? Got good offensive linemen. That's a big factor. That's a big factor.
Yeah,
and a well-coached offensive line.
And again, good coaching on the offensive coordinator front as well to time those screens up in the right situations against the right looks to allow them to be effective. Let's go to Rob in Yonkers. He's up next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hi, Rob.
Hey, good afternoon. How are you guys?
We're good.
First, I would start Happy Victory Monday.
You as well, my friend.
It's great. I hope I don't forget everything I'm going to say. All right, so first thing is that I know you. Paul was on last week, and they were talking about Malik Nabers, and he was like, "You guys are talking about is he a heading player yet? Is he that A1 wide receiver?"
And I said
yes. Yes, I think he made it because if they said it yesterday, they was like, okay, they put the second string cornerback on him, then they put some other cornerback on him. Now they had to put Ward on him. They had to put their number one.
Well, but Rob, the beauty of it is that, and Brian Dable said this after the game, when you got a guy like Nabers, you don't care who the matchup is. Like, do you think Dallas says, we're not going to throw it to CeeDee Lamb this week because Sauce Gardner's on him? No. They're like, we're going to get the ball to our best playmaker. And look, it's his third game. He even had a play late in that game, Nabers. I'm sure he thought he could have came up with it, that little ball that kind of got in on his gut on that little left comeback route on the left side. But
he dropped the go route.
It was a tough catch, but yes, it did hit him in the hands.
He makes that. He's already proven he can make that catch.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
And he'll tell you, I should have caught that one. Right? So he's going to just keep getting better.
Yep. Just keep feeding him, man.
I definitely think we should have had more points on the board if Daniel Jones would have hit Hyatt and Nabers in stride. He overthrew them a little bit.
Yeah, the Hyatt one, he was actually – I rewatched the tape on the Hyatt one this morning. He was pretty well covered on that. There wasn't a ton of room to put that one in, but on the Nabers slot fade, the go route that Bob was talking about, he overthrew him by about a yard.
Yeah, and he overthrew Theo Johnson in the end zone.
Yep.
And he could have been a better throw to Robinson. That would have been a big play.
On the slant, yep.
But if you watch most of these games, we watch all these games – they miss some throws. Everybody misses some throws.
And those
Mahomes missed throws last night. I mean, that's it. Nobody's perfect.
Those deep throws will come.
Yes.
That rhythm has not gotten back yet. But the important thing here, they're throwing them. They're taking the shots. And Casillas always says this on the postgame show. And Jonathan Vilma said it on the huddle last week when I had him. Even if you don't complete those, Bob, the fact that the defense is worried you're going to throw them changes the entire calculation. Remember how many times those safeties and corners would sit on those little 8-yard in-cuts or stop routes in the past because they weren't afraid of getting beat over the top? They can't do that anymore because they're getting the ball down the field.
Yeah, I mean, it happened even near the end of Eli's career.
Thanks for the call, Rob.
They had to throw short because they had no protection. Like it's that simple. And on the over route, I disagree. I think Hyatt was open enough that a better throw, because the guy is in a trail position, and that's the whole design of that route, is you're not necessarily way past him, you're running away from him.
Yeah, you would have to put it less over the top and more towards the sideline. Yeah. I agree with that.
And listen, it's again, he's coming back from a knee injury that is it's taking time, because this whole narrative, well, he doesn't throw a good deep ball. He certainly threw a really good deep ball last year in Arizona when they needed him to throw deep balls. We've seen him throw deep balls before. I think there's a lot more to it with the way training camps are, one-a-days, and managing the injury and the offseason and everything else. But these are the kind of things, man, that you have to be encouraged about, because you know they're going to get better.
Yeah, you just keep throwing it. It's a deep ball is a high variance play. You might miss a few. You got to keep throwing them. One or two will hit, and then those plays can make the difference between a win or a loss. Jay is in Phoenix. He's up next. Hi, Jay.
Hey, guys. And hey, Bob, it's nice to be able to talk to you. I just wanted to say how much I enjoyed the work that you did on pulling together the 100 players. It was awesome. And also, your voice has been a part of so many of these awesome moments. It's just been... It's great. It's nice celebrating this season, this 100 season.
Thank you. It was fun doing the top 100. By the way, John, which Papa's Perspective podcast is coming out?
Yeah, we were going to put one up next Monday or Tuesday. We have to talk about that. Which one do you want to put up, Bob? Do you want to have the conversation right now?
I think we should put the Al Michaels one up.
We can do Al.
The Al Michaels
I'm down with
one
that.
is- or
Joe Buck maybe?
well, have we done the Brent Musburger one?
No, we have not. Guys, see, this is a little tease. We got a lot of good Papa's perspectives
we
coming
haven't
your
put
way.
the Aikman one up
We have
either.
not. I forget which guy talked about the. So which one of them? One of them talked about the Dallas in 11 with the block field goal and then the 07 game. I forget which person talked about those. I don't remember.
Well, it definitely wasn't Musburger.
No.
But anyway, we're taking Jay's time.
Yeah,
here
sorry,
trying
Jay.
to
Go
decide.
ahead.
No, it's all right. You guys touched on a couple of the things I wanted to go over already, but I'll just say that I like wins like this. It's tough to endure, especially that second half was tough. But there's a lot of things coming out of it. They can do better, and it'll keep them hungry for this week against the Cowboys. So excited about that. Just the two things I want to touch on though is I was really happy with this game because it's been hard watching the last couple of games and even into last season. Just the historically bad stats that kept coming out of all of our games. And it's nice to see that Malik Nabers is off to historically the best start for a rookie wide receiver. And that's a great feeling, and he is a special, special player. I can't wait to just continue to see him grow, and I don't even think he's scratched the surface yet. Not even close. And then the last thing I just wanted to say was I was in the building. You know, I'm out here in Arizona. My son and I came into the building last year to go to that Cowboys game. It was kind of his senior trip, and it was a big experience for us, and it was the most horrific sporting event of my life. So I am more than excited to see them. It just take it to the Cowboys and beat them. Just beat them. I don't care how you do it. Just beat them. Do it for Jay in Phoenix.
I appreciate it, Jay. Look, guys, don't worry about style points for road wins against good teams like the Browns. I got a couple calls in the postgame yesterday. Oh, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. I'm like, guys, don't worry about style points here. You're 0-2. You're on the road against a good team. Just take the dub. Take the dub.
Yeah, like Baltimore. I mean, first of all, most NFL games at some point in the second half get to where the game's competitive again.
Correct.
Even when a team jumps out to a big lead. We saw what happened with the Rams, hanging in, and eventually stealing that game yesterday.
Even Dallas made the run late against Baltimore, and Baltimore had to get 2 big first downs.
And look, Kansas City had a zillion chances. Atlanta had a bunch of chances to really take control of that game. They didn't. And that's the way most NFL games are. There's very few that are, put to bed at halftime. And yeah, they don't draw pictures. It's not college football. You're not worrying about a weekly ranking or power ranking. It's how many wins you have, how many losses you have, where are you in the standings.
Now, sadly, the game Jay attended last year, Bob, was one of those games that did not end up becoming close in the second half.
No.
But this is not the same Dallas Cowboy team as last year. They lost a lot of good players in the offseason. Much like the Giants are getting used to a new defensive system, the Cowboys are getting used to a new defensive system with Mike Zimmer. It has not gone well. Over 80 points the last 2 weeks. I think over 800 yards allowed as well. So this is not the same Dallas team that we've seen come into the last 2 or 3 years.
No, and look, week 1, the Giants did not look unbelievably mentally tough, because it felt like when they got behind, especially when they gave up the second touchdown, they looked like they had no confidence that they can come back. And then Washington, it looked a little bit better. And you and I, again, we were thinking the same thing. You fumbled the opening kickoff against this Browns team, and in one play, it was an unbelievable catch by Amari Cooper. It's not like Banks had horrible coverage on it or anything.
Yeah.
But like 11 seconds into the game, it's 7-0 on the road against this defense. Giants didn't blink. So I think you have to be very, very positive about sort of their mental toughness and callous starting to build.
Yeah, Dallas has given up 72 points over the last 2 weeks, 44 to the Saints 2 weeks ago, who then only scored 12 this week against the Eagles, whose defense has not exactly been, gangbusters this year. Then they gave up 25 to the Ravens yesterday. 201-939-4513. Let's go to Steven in Staten Island. He's up next. Hi, Steve.
John, how are you? Hey, Bob. Nice to talk to you. How are you, gentlemen?
Good, Steve.
All right. Excuse me. I have 2 quick questions, and then I'll hang up. First, I have to say I want to apologize for throwing myself off the train after week 1 against Minnesota because I called Howard and Paul and I was like, the sky is falling. But, hey, I got to eat crow, and I have no problems falling on the sword for that, okay? My question on the offense is, do you think eventually we're going to start to see more of the tight ends? I mean, I would love to see what Theo Johnson can actually do. Knowing where Dable came from, where, New England had 2 tight end set and Buffalo used their tight ends. I'm just kind of curious.
Well,
I know you guys mentioned
my question is, what do you mean more? In the sense that they had 2nd and goal at the 5-yard line, and they designed a perfect play for the tight end, which should have been his first touchdown. They overthrew him. They ran him on a seam route, and it didn't connect. They ran some tight end screens.
They're running a bunch of 12 personnel. They're out there, Steven, but a couple times this early in this year too. And look, we went on in the meetings. I don't know what the issue is, but there have been a couple plays here where Theo Johnson and Daniel Jones have been on the same page too. So they might still be feeling each other out, and Theo Johnson as a rookie is probably still figuring out some of the nuances of that position.
How about the interception that was called off? I think Jones –
correct.
That's a communication thing based on the coverage. I think Jones expected him to run like a little out, and he just sat down and stopped, and the ball's got to come out on timing, and the next thing you know, it's intercepted.
That's my point.
So
I guess it's just about timing. And really quick, if I can, on the defensive side, Dallas can't run the ball, and Dallas can't stop the run. So my question to you guys is I kind of love more or less what Shane Bowen did with that defense yesterday, because honestly, nobody expected that, and myself included. And, pressure is what wins games. I mean, you guys know the Giants won their championships because of stellar defenses. Do you see them rushing 5 or maybe 6 again? I know every team you got to scheme differently, but do you think the Giants are licking their chops right now, knowing that, we have something good and we're going to build on it? And Bob, I got to just ask you this before I hang up. I know it's probably a tough question for you because you've done so much of them, but if you had one moment covering these games, what would be your most important and best moment you covered as covering the Giants? Thank you for taking my call, gentlemen.
Thanks, Steve.
Wow.
That's a good question.
You can't really answer it because there's varying degrees of the question.
All right, I'm going to ask you in one way. What call do you think you nailed in the biggest spot that you're most proud of?
The Seahorn interception against the Eagles, the Ron Dixon kickoff return for a touchdown.
I loved your call on the Manningham play on the sideline.
Manningham, I nailed that one. The one that I got, I mean, you could take my call and listen to the national radio, the Cowboys radio, and network TV of the Odell catch. I'm the only one that had in real time,
you're right,
not after the fact. I had in real time that he caught it. There was a flag, got both feet in, touchdown, as it happened. So, I mean, there was a Jesse Armstead pick 6 in the mid-'90s that was like a really good call for a touchdown.
I love that you remember some of these weird, some of these less famous ones.
The Strahan interception return for a touchdown against Doug Peterson, 99. There's a lot of them. Tiki Barber running the Giants to the playoff. There's a lot of them. But my most memorable game is a 35-0 loss, because that was my first game as the full-time play-by-play voice of the Giants in '95. You can never forget that. Although the game sucked, but
so you tried to forget the game result, but just not the experience.
Yeah, well, that was
what was the matchup? I don't.
Giants Cowboys.
It was Giants Cowboys.
The night that they retired Phil Simms' jersey. It was a nightmare. But. That was the old Giant Stadium, and before they built the press box on top of the stadium, so network TV, home visiting national radio was all on that mezzanine. It's like the greatest seat in the NFL. It was the greatest because the height was perfect, but it was low. It was perfect. And I had my dad with me in the booth.
Oh, that's cool.
And I invited my dad to come with me and stand with me in the booth, being from the Bronx and huge Giants fans and growing up right near Yankee Stadium and all that other stuff. So I had my dad with me in the booth right next to me when I did my first game.
That's very cool.
That was my first full-time. I filled in Anaheim in '92 for a Giants game against the Rams. It was Jerome Bettis' rookie season. Then I did the game in '93 in Miami when the Giants beat the Dolphins. Phil Simms. I think Lawrence Taylor had a big. I think Lawrence Taylor broke Steve DeBerg's face mask.
I remember that, actually. So going back to 95, even when the Giants had huge halftime ceremonies, the games tended not to go very well, is basically what you're
telling
me.
There's two things that are certain. When the Giants have a big ceremony at halftime and the Yankees play on Old Timers Day, usually the Yankees and Giants do not perform well.
The first part, I think that was Steven Staten Island, right? The first part of his question was that, do you think they blitz the Cowboys as much as they did the Browns? I'll say this. They've blitzed Dak Prescott a lot with Wink Martindale the last 2 years. It hasn't gone so well. It's a lot different blitzing Dak Prescott versus Deshaun Watson.
Well, but there's also a lot of different ways to blitz.
That's true, too.
Did you see the one blitz that Michigan ran the other night where it was covered? They had cover 0 at like the 6-yard line, and USC had like nobody covered. Like they thought that the safety that was coming on the blitz that was matched up with the receiver was going to get to the quarterback faster than the quarterback was going to get the ball out, and it wasn't even close. So I remember watching it and saying, "Well, we've seen that before." There's ways to blitz, but without exposing yourself. And I think a lot of it depends on the health of the corners. Remember, Drew Phillips got hurt. Adoree Jackson got hurt. I don't know what the status of any of these guys are. It's only Monday. But it also depends on the health of your secondary. Cordell Flott had a really nice game, by the way.
And Art Green.
Art Green playing the role of Jeffrey Pope. Giant fans will remember this. The Giants were down DBs. Playoff game in Dallas, 2007 playoffs. And they were down so many guys. A dude named Jeffrey Pope was out covering T.O.
That's right. That was Terrell Owens playing on. Yeah, he just came
and
back
Antonio
from the
Pierce
injury.
had the famous line because they didn't even know who this guy was. Like they had just activated him. And I'll never forget Antonio Pierce. Like, what was it? You know, the kid Pope back there because I was scared to turn around and even look.
Is that what he said? I didn't remember that one.
Yeah, so
that's a good one.
Number 35 yesterday, who had never played a snap in the NFL before yesterday.
I think dozen snaps, I think, on defense.
He was on the undrafted free agent with the Broncos, on the practice squad the whole year. He was elevated for the last game of the regular season, but didn't get any snaps on defense. And I think the only reason why they elevated him, sometimes teams will do this at the end of the year. They will elevate a player off the practice squad who they think is a really good guy who worked really hard, and for 1 week they want to give him a game check. You know, an NFL game check as opposed. The Giants did it with Davis Webb a couple of years ago. So the next thing you know, this guy's covering Jerry Jeudy when the game mattered.
True. 11 offensive snaps, 21 special team snaps for Art Green in this game. And again, we'll have to track those cornerbacks and see who is healthy next week. 201-939-4513. Maybe Nick McLeod can make his way back, too. He didn't play this week. We'll see how that goes. But it's a short one, so it's tough to come back. Only a couple extra days of rehab. Len is in Columbia, Maryland. Hi, Len.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
We're doing well today, Len. It's
Good.
certainly better than the last 2 Mondays. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. It's always good. Dinner tasted better last night, and it was a 2-beer night.
Nice.
Yeah, there was a shot, a TV shot of number 35, Green, at the end of the game. He was talking to Henderson, I think, on the sidelines. He was about 10 yards away from him, and it looked like the kid was looking at the coach and wanted to say, "What do I do now?" And the coach just kind of waved him on the field and said, "Go do your thing." I obviously didn't hear the message, but that was the facial expression. That was the scene. It kind of resonated with me. Good for him. Hey, Bob, quick thank you. You were on the day they unveiled the final 10 in the top 100, and I called in and talked to you a little bit about Eddie Price, and then we got off the phone, and you followed up. You did a little research for me real quick, and you followed up with some information on Price. I appreciate that, Bob. That was nice of you to do. Yeah, appreciate that. Well, hey, listen, can't wait for Thursday night. This is going to be good. I'll be there, as usual. Yeah. Well, I'm a season ticket holder, so I don't miss very many games. I'm certainly not going to miss the Dallas game for sure, no matter when it is. So, and I think we'll do okay. geez, that was an important win yesterday. I can't imagine the narrative at 0-3. I can't imagine what it would have been. But
it would have been bad. It would have been. Let's face it,
terrible.
But it all depends. Listen. It also would depend on how you got to 0-3, right? Like, so let's say Cleveland scored as they did. Mistake at the beginning of the game. Giants came back, scored. Cleveland scored again, and you kind of went back and forth. And the next thing you know, you lose 27-24 on a Hopkins 46-yard field goal. But you showed signs in all areas that the team is improving. That's 1-0-3. And then another 0-3 was if yesterday looked like the Vikings game again.
Or even if they would have ended up blowing that 21-7 lead, that would have been a really bad 0-3 too, Bob. Let's be honest with you.
I was thinking about that too. And I kept saying during the broadcast, I'm like, they keep wasting opportunities to get that score back to create that margin again that makes it almost untouchable. Yeah. And I'm like, there was a part of me that was like, oh, my God, I can't imagine what this is going to be like tomorrow when they blow this game.
Well, I think you're true. I think it was a very, very important win for them. I mean, not just for this season. I think it was important for the franchise. It just felt like that kind of game at national TV Thursday night at 0-3 against the Cowboys. Fans would have been angry going up the escalator, Bob, not just coming down the escalator at the end of the game.
And the other realistic part about it is you would have had – look, there are some fans that going to a night game, especially a Thursday night game if you have to work the next day, or maybe if you're a little bit older, you just don't want to go to a night game. It's just you got to leave when you leave, and by the time the game ends and you get out of there in the traffic and everything else, you're not even out of the parking lot until midnight, right? So so fans are going to give away some of their tickets. They're going to try to offer them up. If they were 0-3, the problem that you would have had was you would have had a massive sell-off on the secondary market on the ticket things, and you would have had a lot of Cowboys fans buying tickets that right now maybe can't get tickets, and that win probably created a lot of Giants fans' decision to either hold on to their tickets or make sure they give them to a friend who's a Giants fan as opposed to putting them out there and just selling them to the highest bidder.
Hey, look, and Len, if the Commanders lose tonight in the NFC East, you got 3 teams at 1-2 and 1 team at 2-1.
Commanders are losing tonight.
It was from the standpoint of this season, even though it's early, and you really got to get out around Game 4 and Game 5 to really get a feeling about how the season's going to break out. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The first 3 games, I mean, it's really quite, really is quite a mix. I want to say something about 2 things real quick. One, it was evident to me yesterday that the preseason's over. It was a different team. They were flying around. They looked much more confident. They were committed to what they were doing. It didn't look like they were kind of looking around and said, "Where should I go now?" It takes a few weeks. I know no one liked what that Minnesota coach said after the game. Everybody thought it was kind of self-serving for him to say we were better prepared and we were better conditioned.
Hey, Len. No, go ahead. You can finish up. Your phone's crackling a little bit on us here.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, tell me what.
Can't do it. We tried.
Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart, so check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary, terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Well, anyway, just to finish up on his point, it was, I don't know, you didn't hear Brian Daboll sort of gloating from his podium after the game, talking about how much more prepared his team was in Cleveland. Yeah, it was a little bit shaky.
Yeah, I mean, Brian Daboll, I think he's more of the Tom Coughlin school, where if the team plays bad, you take it on yourself. If the team plays well, you give the credit to the players.
Right. Yeah. That left In coaching circles, that left a bad taste in some coaches around the league with the way those comments were made after the Vikings game.
I will say this, though. I think you do have to look at that Vikings loss a lot differently. Look, do you ever want to lose a game 28-6? Absolutely not. But did you see what the Vikings did to the Houston Texans yesterday? And they beat the 49ers the week before? The Vikings right now might be the best team in the NFC. So, look, 28-6 is 28-6. You can't say it was a good game. It was a terrible game. But the Vikings might end up being a really good football team.
Yeah, I mean, and look, that's 2 years in a row now the Vikings have beaten the 49ers. So Brian Flores' scheme or whatever causes issues for Shanahan's offensive scheme and the personnel with San Francisco. Yes, Minnesota is proving to be much better than the team that we thought they were coming in. But as a Giant fan, you want to believe that your team's going to be one of the best.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, you don't look at the butt kicking and say, well, they're better than we thought they were.
Well,
nah, we want to be good.
C.J. Stroud just 20 of 31 for 215 yards and 2 picks in that game. He had not thrown a pick for a long time, right? Go back to like mid-season last year or something like that. C.J. Stroud hadn't thrown a pick since I think then, something like that. So, again, that Brian Flores defense doing a really, really nice job. 201-939-4513. Elliot is in Puerto Rico. Elliot, what's going on?
Hi, John. Hi, Bob.
What's up?
Hey, what's going on?
I like this, being the last caller.
No, you're not
It
last.
happened again.
I have someone else coming after you here, Elliot.
Uh-huh. Say what?
I said I have someone else come on after
You're
you.
not-
So what's
you're
your
not-
point, Elliot?
you're
What do you
not
got?
I'm okay. Well,
We could put you on hold and make you the last one.
We can't do that if you want.
No. Actually, I'm happy. This is awesome. Bob is there. Never met Bob before.
Go ahead, Elliot. Talk to him. What do you got?
Well, I can tell you that my wife made some steaks last night, and they tasted like heaven after a win. And even my Monday coffee was like awesome after a win. So I just got to say that we talked about this last week, that everybody was, like sky's falling, and we have to trust the process. And we see the kind of team that we can be. I know there's always something to improve. There's always is. And hopefully they can translate this to a short week. It's a short week for us, but it's shorter for them because they play on the evening game and they have to travel.
Yeah, Dallas has to travel, so it actually is tougher on Dallas this week. You're right about that.
Yeah, so I maybe that can be a factor to win this game. Hopefully they win. And I wasn't hearing the podcast live, so I apologize if I go about something that maybe already happened. But it's a caller right there last week that said that if the Giants win, he will call and apologize. So if he didn't do it today, he has until Thursday.
Wait, was that Wilson or Charlie? I'm trying to remember which one.
Nah, I'm not talking about Charlie. He's a lost case. I don't even listen to him.
I think it was Wilson. I think it might have been Wilson. I could be wrong, though.
Okay, I don't bother to invest my time in Charlie. Charlie is lost cause.
Charlie?
It doesn't matter.
Charlie Bacchiano from Twitter.
Oh, my God.
Don't say his name. Stop saying it.
No, it's ringing. Uh-oh.
So hopefully he called. I wanted to hear what his excuses now that we won. So whatever.
So Elliot wants to hear somebody call to apologize. We're not sure who it was.
Yes. So Elliot, do you have a point on the game?
He's happy.
No,
his steak tastes good. His coffee tastes good, and he wants his steak. He wants his.
Thank you, Elliot.
He
Appreciate
wants
the
his
call.
steak, and he wants his bacon and eggs this Friday morning, and the coffee to taste better than it tasted today.
Jeff in Rhode Island has been calling the show probably just as long as Len, over 10 years. Jeff, what's going on, man?
Johnny, I was shocked to see Bob Papa on the show today, so I called hoping I would get through. Excuse me, I've been calling the program since day one. Bob, I've been a Giants fan since '67 when Fran Tarkenton came aboard. living in Rhode Island can be very tough at times, trying to listen or see the Giants. Most of the time, the games are not televised here. So I try and get on WFAN and listen to you and Carl because I enjoy you guys so much. Unfortunately, the fan doesn't stream the Giants games each and every week for some reason, which I don't know why.
Well, Jeff, I can tell you why. The NFL forces all local radio affiliates to what's called geolocate and geo-target their stream, so you can only get the radio stream on FAN in the local market because they have other partners like Sirius, for example, that stream the game nationally, so they don't want to take away from their other national partners.
You don't have Sirius, do you?
Yeah, no, but the odd thing was I was able to listen to the game on the fan yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, which was great. But, excuse me, Bob, I got to tell you again how much I enjoy you and Carl together. I think you just do an outstanding job.
So you missed those days when select Giants games were on EEI, huh?
I don't remember EEI. I remember getting that, but
really, they were on EEI back in the day.
There was, I think it was EEI, or it was another. It's one of the major stations in Boston. Because the Giants were New England's team before the Patriots were born, which is why there's so many Giants fans up there. There used to be the old WNEW AM radio network that we had. We would have. I can't remember if it was EEI or another major station in Boston, where there were games that, as long as it did not conflict with a Patriot game, as long as they weren't playing at the same time, Giant games were broadcast in Boston. The Giant games were broadcast in Dallas when I first started.
And by the way, we do have Jeff. I don't think I've ever told you this. We do have an affiliate in Hartford, WPOP 1410 AM. I'm not sure if you can get that. I know that's closer to you probably, but we do have an affiliate at Hartford. If that helps you at all.
Yeah, would that be over the air or online?
Well, it's definitely over the air. I'm not sure if they stream it or not. I'm not positive about that.
Yeah, another thing. I used to call in on Monday nights to the Bill Parcells report from Gallagher's Steakhouse.
Gallagher's.
Yeah.
I used to well after John Kennelly left, I hosted that show for a couple of years. Unfortunately, it was with Ray Hanley and not Bill Parcells.
Yeah.
So.
A little bit different. A little bit.
But the scene was awesome. Eddie Croak walking around, cocktail in hand, microphone. Oh, look what we have here. It'd be some longtime writer or something like that. Not a sports writer, or some actor or something that would come to Gallagher's, and you'd have the coach on, and you'd have a player on. It was a pretty raucous scene at that joint.
Where was Gallagher? Was that in Jersey or Manhattan?
No, Manhattan.
It was in Manhattan. Okay.
Yeah, well, hey, it was great to see you on the program today, Bob.
Yeah, great talking with you.
I'll be trying to listen in every week whenever I can. So,
all right.
Take care. Thank you.
You got it.
Appreciate it.
You got time for one more here?
Well, the caller bank is blank here, so I can give you 3 minutes here if you want to wrap the show with a look ahead to Dallas, maybe, or something else. What do you got?
I got nothing else. I'm all talked out.
All right, real quick, going into Thursday night, we had a chance to talk to Brian Dable today. This Dallas team, we've talked about a little bit. It's a little bit different this year with their defense, Bob, with Mike Zimmer there instead of Dan Quinn, who's now in Washington. It's been tough for them. I always wonder with a game like this how much you alter what you normally do if you're the Giants to try to attack the team's weaknesses, but you don't want to, stop doing things that you do well. How do you kind of balance those two parts of the equation here as you head into a game against Dallas that has had such a pronounced weakness defensively trying to stop the run?
I think you just try to identify what their weaknesses are and what you do well that could exploit that weakness. I don't think you're coming up trying to create stuff. And they got a pretty in-depth playbook. But yeah, they all have books on each other. I think that the Giants will try to exploit some matchups. Every game that they go into, every team, all 32 teams, feel that they have certain matchups that they'll be able to exploit, and the Giants will do their due. I mean, they started working on Dallas last week, right, because of the short week.
And then even last night they were having meetings about them when they got off the plane.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big game, man. This is a big game, and the reason why I say that is they beat Philadelphia last year when Philadelphia needed the game, right? The Eagles were in a free fall. They needed that game at the end of the season, and the Giants legitimately beat them to the point that they started pulling guys because they had the playoffs coming, and they got Hurts out and all that other stuff. But when the game mattered, the Giants were beating them. Now, obviously, with Saquon going to Philadelphia, it's going to re-ramp that thing up again. But the Giants have to beat Dallas. Like, you've lost 13 of the last 14 to them. At some point, if you really want to say, hey, we're building something here and we want to challenge within the division and we want to get ourselves in position this year, but also moving forward, you can't keep losing to them, right? I mean, you got to beat them. You got to have, and that's the mindset. Not that the whole season resides on this one game, but I think from a team health standpoint, because there's been a lot of guys that have lost a lot of times to the Cowboys in a lot of different ways, shapes, and forms, too.
Yeah, one of our callers said this about the Browns. I think it was Len, about the Browns game. It was important not just for wins and losses in the season, but for the franchise. That's what it feels like against the Eagles and the Cowboys now, because you have to kind of show that, all right, we're in their weight class now, right? We're not punching up anymore. We should be in the same conversation as these guys.
Correct. And this is not as good a Dallas team as we've seen in the past couple of years. I'm not saying that they can't wind up winning 12 games for a fourth year in a row. That could happen too. But they have some weaknesses. Take advantage of them. Take advantage of them, exploit them, and see what you can do.
I wish they weren't getting them after 2 losses. But it is what it is.
I know that, but if they would have won, and listen, if they would have won, then everybody would have said,
"Oh, the flying high off beating the Ravens."
Flying high after that unbelievable comeback against the Ravens. We get them at the wrong time. That's the beauty of us as fans, media, our listeners and viewers out there, fans. We're just fans. The one good thing about it is nobody that works in the team even thinks of things that we think about.
No,
like that kind of stuff. Like,
not for a second.
Oh, man, I really kind of wish they would have won so they won't be as ornery when they – like, coaches and players don't think about any of that. They do not think about any of that.
No, you're absolutely right. Bob, this was fun.
Yeah, so it was great.
I appreciate having you, man. This was great.
All right. Well, somewhere down the road, I'll come back.
Yeah. Tomorrow, it'll be me and O'Hara. We'll have a little bit of a different lineup this week, folks. We got me and O'Hara tomorrow. You got Madeline Dottino on Wednesday, Sytak and I on Thursday, and then it'll be Dottino and somebody else with a pulse on Friday. We'll figure out who that is when we get closer later in the week. So stay tuned to Big Blue Kickoff Live, continuing coverage this week. Giants Huddle Podcast, I mentioned Brian Baldinger is going up tomorrow. So make sure you check that out on our podcast platforms and the Giants app all week long. For Bob Papa, I'm John Schmeelk. Thank you for joining us on Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. We'll see you next time, everybody.
Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart, so check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary, terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
What's good? Justin Jefferson here.
Football is a lot of explosion, a lot of energy and attitude.
With these open earbuds,
to have good sound and to be so light on your ear, it's like a dream.
For more, check out Bose.com.